Hello, everybody. This is Psychology of the Unconscious by Carl Jung. Chapter 4, The Song of the Moth, Part 2. The reader will recall, in the preceding chapter, the following chain of synonyms was adduced. The singer, god of sound, singing morning star, creator, god of light, sun, fire, god of love. At that time we had placed sun and fire in parentheses. Now they're entitled to their right place in the chain of synonyms. With the changing of the erotic impression from the affirmative to the negative, the symbols of light occur as the paramount object. In the second poem, where the longing is clearly exposed, it is by no means the terrestrial sun. Since the longing has been turned away from the real object, its object has become, first of all, a subjective one, namely, God. Psychologically, however, God is the name of the representation complex which is grouped around a strong feeling, the sum of libido. Properly, the feeling is what gives character and reality to the complex. The attributes and symbols of the divinity must belong in a consistent manner to the feeling, longing, love, libido, and so on. If one honors God, the sun, or the fire, then one honors one's own vital force, the libido. It is as Seneca says, God is near you, he is with you, in you. God is your own longing to which we pay divine honors. If it were not known how tremendously significant religion was and is, this marvelous play with oneself would appear absurd. There must be something more than this, however, because notwithstanding its absurdity, it is in a certain sense conformable with the purpose in the highest degree. To bear God within oneself signifies a great deal. It is a guarantee of happiness, of power, indeed even of omnipotence, as far as these attributes belong to the deity. To bear a God within oneself signifies just as much as to be God's oneself. In Christianity, where, it's true, the grossly sensual representations and symbols are weeded out as carefully as possible, which seems to be a continuation of the poverty of symbols of the Jewish cult, there are to be found plain traces of this psychology. There are even plainer traces, to be sure, in the becoming one with God, in those mysteries closely related to the Christian, where the mystic himself is lifted up to divine adoration through initiatory rites. At the close of the consecration into the Isis mysteries, the mystic was crowned with the palm crown. He was placed on a pedestal and worshipped as Helios. In the magic papyrus of the Mithraic liturgy, published by Dietrich, there was a sacred word of the consecrated one. I am a star wandering about with you and flaming up from the depths. The mystic in religious ecstasies put himself on a plane with the stars, just as the saint of the Middle Ages put himself by means of the stigmata on a level with Christ. St. Francis of Assisi expressed this as in a truly pagan manner, even as far as a close relationship with the brother sun and sister moon. These representations of becoming one with God are very ancient. The old belief removed the becoming one with God until the time after death. The mysteries, however, suggest this as taking place already in this world. A very old text brings most beautifully before one this unity with God. It's a song of triumph of the ascending soul. I am the god Atom. I who alone was. I am the god Re, at his first splendor. I am the great God, self-created, God of gods, to whom no other God compares. I was yesterday and know tomorrow. The battleground of gods was made when I spoke. I know the name of that great God who tarries therein. I am the great phoenix who is in Heliopolis, who there keeps account of all there is, of all that exists. I am the god Min, at his coming forth, who placed the feathers upon my head. I am in the country, I come into my city. Daily I am together with my father, Atom. My impurity is driven away, and the sin which was in me is overcome. I washed away myself in those two great pools of water, which are in Heracleopolis, in which is purified the sacrifice of mankind for the great God who abideth there. I go on my way to where I wash my head in the sea of the righteous. I arrive at the land of the glorified, and enter through the splendid portal. Thou, who standst before me, stretch out to me thy hands. It is I am become one of thee. Daily I am together with my father, Atom. The identification with God necessarily has a result, the enhancing of the meaning and power of the individual. That seems, first of all, to have been really its purpose, a strengthening of the individual against his all too great weakness and insecurity in real life. The great megalomania thus has a genuinely pitiable background. The strengthening of the consciousness of power is, however, only an external result of the becoming one with God. Of much more significance are the deeper-lying disturbances in the realm of feeling. Whoever introverts libido, that is to say, whoever takes it away from a real object without putting it in its place a real compensation, is overtaken by the inevitable results of introversion. The libido, which is turned inward into the subject, awakens again from among the sleeping remembrances, one which contains the path upon which earlier the libido once had come to the real object. At the very first and in the foremost position it was father and mother who were the objects of the childish love. They're unequaled and imperishable. Not many difficulties are needed in an adult's life to cause those memories to reawaken and to become effectual. In religion, the regressive reanimation of the father and mother imago is organized into a system. The benefits of religion are the benefits of parental hands. Its protection and its peace are the results of parental care upon the child. Its mystic feelings are the unconscious memories of the tender emotions of the first childhood, just as the hymn expresses it. I am in my country, I come into my city. Daily I am together with my father, Atom. The visible father of the world is, however, the sun, the heavenly fire. Therefore, Father, God, Son, Fire are mythologically synonymous. The well-known fact that in the sun's strength the great generative power of nature is honored shows plainly, very plainly, to anyone to whom as yet it may not be clear that in the deity man honors his own libido, and naturally in the form of the image of symbol of the present object of transference. This symbol faces us in an especially marked manner in the third logos of the Dietrich Papyrus. After the second prayer, stars come from the disk of the sun to the mystic, 5 pointed in quantities filling the whole air. If the sun's disk has expanded, you will see an immeasurable circle, the fiery gates which are shut off. The mystic utters the following prayer. Hear me, grant me my prayer, binding together the fiery bolts of heaven with spirit, two-bodied fiery sky, creator of humanity, fire-breathing, fiery-spirited, spiritual being rejoicing in fire, beauty of humanity, ruler of humanity of fiery body, light-giver to men, fire-scattering, fire-agitated, life of humanity, fire-world, mover of men who confounds with thunder, famed among men, increasing the human race, enlightening humanity, conqueror of stars. The invocation is, as one sees, almost inexhaustible in light and fire attributes, and can be likened in its extravagance only to the synonymous attributes of love of the mystic of the Middle Ages. Among the innumerable texts which might be used as an illustration of this, I select a passage from the writings of Mechthild von Magdeburg. O Lord, love me excessively, and love me often and long. The oftener you love me, so much the purer do I become. The more excessively you love me, the more beautiful I become. The longer you love me, the more holy will I become here upon earth. God answered, that I love you often, that I have from my nature, for I myself am love, that I love you excessively, that I have from my desire, for I too desire that men love me excessively, that I love you long, that I have from my everlastingness, for I am without end. The religious regression makes us indeed of the parental image without, however, consciously making it an object of transference, for the incest horror forbids that. It remains rather as a synonym, for example, of the Father or of God, or of the more or less personified symbol of the sun and fire. Sun and fire, that is to say, the fructifying strength and heat, are attributes of the libido. In mysticism, the inwardly perceived divine vision is often merely sun or light, and is very little or not at all personified. In the Mithraic liturgy there is found, for example, a significant quotation. The path of the visible gods will appear through the sun, the God, my Father. Hildegard von Bingen expresses herself in the following manner. But the light I see is not local but far off, and brighter than the cloud which supports the sun. I can in no way know the form of this light, since I cannot entirely see the sun's disk. But within this light I can see at times and infrequently another light, which is called by me the living light. But when and in what manner I see this, I do not know how to say, and when I see it, all weariness and need is lifted from me. Then, too, I feel like a simple girl, not like an old woman. Simeon, the new theologian, says the following: My tongue lacks words, and what happens in me my spirit sees clearly, but does not explain. It sees the invisible, that emptiness of all forms, simple throughout, not complex, and in extent, infinite. For it sees no beginning, and it sees no end. It is entirely unconscious of the meanings. It does not know what to call and which it seems. Something complete appears. It seems to me not indeed through the being itself, but through the participation. For you enkindle fire from fire, and you receive the whole fire. But this remains undiminished and undivided as before. Similarly, that which is divided separates itself from the first, and like something corporeal spreads itself into several lights. This, however, is something spiritual, immeasurable, indivisible, and inexhaustible. For it's not separated when it becomes many, but remains undivided, and it is in me, and enters within my poor heart like a sun or circular disk of the sun, similar to the light, for it is a light. That thing, perceived as inner light, as the sun of the other world, is longing, is clearly shown by Simeon's words. The following is my spirit demanded to embrace the splendor beheld, but it found it not as a creature, and did not succeed in coming out from among created beings, so that it might embrace that uncreated and uncomprehended splendor. Nevertheless, it wandered everywhere, and strove to behold it. It penetrated the air. It wandered over the heavens, it crossed over the abyss, it searched, and as it seemed to it, the ends of the world. But in all of that it found nothing, for all was created. And I lamented and was sorrowful. My breast burned, and I lived as one distraught in mind. But it came as it would, and descending like a luminous mystic cloud, it seemed to envelop my whole head, so that dismayed I cried out. But flying away it left me alone. And when I, troubled, sought for it, I suddenly realized that it was in me, myself, and in the midst of my heart it appeared as the light of a spherical sun. In Nietzsche's Glory in Eternity, we meet with an essentially similar symbol. Hush! I see vastness, and a vasty thing shall man be done, unless he can enshrine them with words. Then take the night which brings the heart upon thy tongue, charmed wisdom mine. I look above, there rolls a star-strewn sea. O night, mute silence, voiceless cry of stars, and lo, a sign the heaven its verge unbars. A shining constellation falls towards me. It's not astonishing if Nietzsche's great inner loneliness calls again into existence certain forms of thought which the mystic ecstasy of the old cults has elevated to ritual representation. In the visions of the Mithraic liturgy, we have to deal with many similar representations, which we can now understand without difficulty as the ecstatic symbol of the libido. After you've said the second prayer, when silence is twice commanded, then whistle twice and snap twice, and straightway you will see many five-pointed stars coming down from the sun and filling the whole lower air. But say once again, silence, silence, and you, neophyte, will see the circle and fiery doors cut off from the opening disk of the sun. Silence is commanded, and the vision of light is revealed. The similarity of the mystic's condition and Nietzsche's poetical vision is surprising. Nietzsche says constellation. It's well known that constellations are chiefly therio or anthropomorphic symbols. The papyrus says five-fingered stars, similar to the rosy-fingered Eos, which is nothing else than an anthropomorphic image. Accordingly, one may expect from that by long gazing a living being would be formed out of the flame image or star constellation or therio or anthropomorphic nature, or the symbolism of the libido does not end with sun, light, and fire, but makes use of wholly other means of expression. I yield precedence to Nietzsche, the beacon. Here, where the island grew amidst the seas, a sacrificial rock high towering, here under darkling heavens, Zarathustra lights his mountain fires. These flames with grey-white belly and cold distances sparkle their desire. stretches its neck towards ever purer heights, a snake upreared in impatience. The signal I set out there before me, this flame is mine own soul, insatiable for new distances, speeding upward, upward its silent heat. And all lonely ones I now throw my fishing rod, give answer to the flame's impatience. Let me, the fisher on high mountains, catch my seventh, last solitude. Here, libido becomes fire, flame, and snake, the Egyptian symbol of the living disk of the sun. The disk with the two entwining snakes contains the combination of both the libido analogies. The disk of the sun, with its fructifying warmth, is analogous to the fructifying warmth of love. The comparison of the libido with sun and fire is in reality analogous. There's also a causative element in it, for sun and fire as beneficent powers are objects of human love. For example, the sun hero Mithra is called the well-beloved. In Nietzsche's poem, the comparison is also a causative one, but this time in a reverse sense. The comparison with the snake is unequivocally phallic, corresponding completely with the tendency in antiquity, which was to see the symbol of the phallus, the quintessence of life and fruitfulness. The phallus is the source of life and libido, the great creator and worker of miracles, and as such it received reverence everywhere. We have therefore three designating symbols of the libido. First, the comparison by analogy is sun and fire. Second, the comparisons based on causative relations as A, object comparison. The libido is designated by its object, for example, the beneficent sun. B, the subject comparison, in which the libido is designated by its place of origin or the analogies of this, for example, by phallus or analogous snake. To these two fundamental forms of comparison, still a third is added, in which the tertium comparationis is the activity. For example, libido is dangerous when fecundating like the bull, through the power of its passion, like the lion, the raging boar, when in heat, like the ever-rutting ass, and so on. The activity comparison can belong equally well to the category of the analogous or to the category of the causative comparisons. The possibilities of comparison mean just as many possibilities for symbolic expression, and from this basis all the infinitely varied symbols, so far as they are libido images, may properly be reduced to a very simple root, that is, just to libido and its fixed primitive qualities. The psychologic reduction and simplification is in accordance with its historic effects of civilization to unify and simplify, to syncretize the endless number of the gods. We come across this desire as far back as the old Egyptians, where the unlimited polytheism is exemplified in the numerous demons of places finally necessitated simplification. All the various local gods, Ammon of Thebes, Horus of Edfu, Horus of the East, Khnum of Elephantine, Atum of Heliopolis, and others, became identified with the sun god Re. In the hymns of the sun, the composite being Amun-Re Hamarchus Atum was invoked as the only god which truly lives. Amenhotep IV, the 18th dynasty, went the furthest in this direction. He replaced all former gods by the living great disk of the sun, the official title reading, the sun ruling both horizons, triumphant in the horizon in his name, the glittering splendor which is the sun's disk. And indeed, Ehrman adds, the sun as a god should not be honored, but the sun itself as a planet which imparts through its rays the infinite life which is in it to all living creatures. Amenhotep IV, by his reform, completed a work which is psychologically important. He united all the bull, ram, crocodile, and pile-dwelling gods into the disk of the sun, and made it clear that their various attributes were compatible with the sun's attributes. A similar fate overtook the Hellenic and Roman polytheism through its syncretistic efforts of later centuries. The beautiful prayer of Lucius to the Queen of Heavens furnishes an important proof of this. Queen of Heaven, whether thou art the genial Ceres, or the prime parent of fruits, or whether thou art celestial Venus, or whether thou art the sisters of Phoebus, or whether thou art Proserpina, terrific with midnight howlings, with that feminine brightness of thine illuminating the walls of every city. This attempt to gather again into a few units the religious thoughts that were divided into countless variations and personified in individual gods according to their polytheistic distribution and separation, makes clear the fact that already at an earlier time analogies had formally arisen. Herodotus is rich in just such references, not to mention the systems of the Hellenic Roman world. Opposed to the endeavor to form a unity, there stands a still stronger endeavor to create again and again a multiplicity, so that even in the so-called severe monotheistic religions, as Christianity, for example, the polytheistic tendency is irreplaceable. The deity is divided into three parts at least, which is added the feminine deity of Mary, and the numerous company of the lesser gods, the angels and saints, respectively. These two tendencies are in constant warfare. There's only one God with countless attributes, or else there are many gods who are then simply known differently, according to locality, and personifies sometimes this, sometimes that attribute of the fundamental thought, an example of which we've seen above in the Egyptian gods. With this, we turn once more to Nietzsche's poem, The Beacon. We found the flame there used as an image of the libido, theriomorphically represented as a snake, also as an image of the soul. This flame is mine own soul. We saw that the snake is to be taken as a phallic image of the libido, upreared in impatience, and that this image, also an attribute of the conception of the sun, the Egyptian sun idol, is an image of the libido in the combination of sun and phallus. It's not a wholly strange conception, therefore, that the sun's disk is represented with a penis, as well as with hands and feet. We find proof of this idea in a peculiar sort of Mithraic liturgy. In like manner, the so-called tube, the origin of the ministering wind, will become visible, for it will appear to you as a tube hanging down from the sun. This is extremely important vision of a tube hanging down from the sun would produce in a religious text, such as one of that of the Mithraic liturgy, a strange and at the same time meaningless effect if it did not have the phallic meaning. The tube is the place of the origin of the wind. The phallic meaning seems very faint in this idea, but one must remember that the wind, as well as the sun, is a fructifier and creator. This has already been pointed out in a footnote. There's a picture by a Germanic painter of the Middle Ages of a Conceptio Immaculata, which deserves mention here. The conception is represented by a tube or pipe coming down from heaven and passing beneath the skirt of Mary. Into this flies the Holy Ghost in the form of a dove for the impregnation of the Mother of God.